draw a line on a piece of paper and then walk it all the way onto the job site and make sure it's going to be installed the way it was drawn up, then you're probably not doing things correctly. You want to make sure that every line that you're drawing on that detail can actually be done and is being done correctly.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our regular discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Editorial Director Andrew Zellner coming to you live from the 2022 International Builder Show at the lovely Huber Engineered Woods booth. I'm joined by a few very special guests, Emily Mottram, got Steve Baczek, and our favorite rep
How do you define special?
From Huber, Nick Robertson. Steve, you're very special to everyone here. And today we're recapping some of our favorite stuff from the show. Of course, you can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. So guys, how was the show? What'd you see? What do you like?
I'd like to take home the Ford Lightning. Could I just have one of those? Just drive it out? Take it home with me?
I got on the list, and I can get one in like 2025. So,
Go ahead, Steve.
So I had a pretty cool experience this morning. It was the first time I've ever used what they call the Oculus goggles, where you walk through a room. And it was really cool to see it. But the thing that I thought was cool was the actual experience of doing it, in that you're walking through a room, but you're not moving. So you had to resolve that in your mind. And then, two, I'm having a conversation with 2 or 3 people outside, but they're not in my view. So, and the guy was walking around, and he would say something over here to my left, and then he'd be on my right, and he'd say something. But in neither case did he appear in the room. So they're like kind of playing games with me, which was, it's really cool, but like it takes a little for your mind to resolve what's happening.
I have a feeling they don't play those games with everybody. It was just for you, Steve.
Yeah, we were having some fun.
My husband has one of those. We play those games too. It's like, no, here. But that is a cool experience, and I don't know how you feel, Steve. 3D models have been huge for our clients, and being able to physically look around in the space, like, is that the next thing for us in the 3D model world?
Yeah, I think it only gets better from here. I mean, that's the start. I wouldn't say it was the crispest of crisp model that that measures reality or the same as reality, but it's certainly a stepping stone to get us to the next level.
I feel like I've seen a few things like that, of like, this isn't the thing, but it's like the thing that will get us to the thing.
Yeah. But the older I get, Andrew, I think that's true of everything in this whole show. Nothing here is the solution. Everything is just the next step to the next thing.
So one of the products I was really excited about was the Eaton Smart Breaker. So, we've had sort of smart load centers and, wireless enabled, circuitry. But the Smart Breaker itself is like something you can pop into your existing panel and like monitor the circuits you want to monitor in a way that's like more affordable, easier to install, and like works with your existing infrastructure. And I've been geeking out on energy monitoring at my house because it was built in 1906 and it's in Minneapolis. And I've been doing a lot of air sealing and like trying to make it perform better. But it's like those things that are more approachable for the average homeowner, I think, are some of the ways innovation gets adopted.
So let's have a little chat about that, because this is something that's always bothered me. And it's great to have you two here too. So if I have a dashboard and I step out of the shower and it says, Steve, this morning you used 68.3 gallons of water. In my mind, personally, I really don't give a damn about that number because I'm not changing it. I'm stepping into the shower and I'm taking a shower as long as I need to take a shower to make myself happy, and then I'm stepping out of the shower. I'm not. Now, I understand that there's information being provided to me, but I'm kind of questioning what the need for that information is. If I'm the kind of person that's going to sit there and say, okay, let's try and keep our shower to 42 gallons every day. And okay, today I was over. Let's not do that again. But I don't know. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how you guys feel, because the whole dashboard thing is a conflict for me.
So I've been on the tech stage with Eric Goranson quite a bit this week while we were here at the show. And we had an interesting discussion on power outages and all electrification as we move forward and how we're not prepared for that. And so I agree with you now. We're not changing how some of that is. But if we get to the point where our power grid is no longer providing enough power for some of those things, hot water heating and how long you take a shower might become a necessity, right? So I'm not sure that would be what I would monitor right now. And I think that's interesting. But and they don't have a booth here, but one of the tech toys that I thought was kind of cool that Eric presented on the stage is a little thing that plugs into an outlet called, it's either made by Ting or it's called Ting, and it monitors the circuits in your house. And apparently that's going to be really good for preventing house fires through electrical circuits, because it can monitor overloads and certain parts that are malfunctioning in your electrical system, which I think I bought a 1977 house that has all kinds of electrical issues, and had we identified some of those earlier on, we may have had less issues. So I found that tech toy kind of interesting.
But I think too, it's like being like, I don't necessarily care how much electricity I'm using or how much water I'm using, but it's more like identifying that anomaly that leads you to like, oh, something's going wrong and I can fix it maybe before the issue becomes visible or a bigger issue.
I also think about it in my personal life. I have a smart thermostat that tracks how much you're using your air conditioning or heating, and they've put an interesting concept into it where they compare you to your neighbors. And I'm extremely competitive, so when I get an email of a monthly report that says, "Hey, you're in the 30th percentile of how much you use."
Big sign in your window says, "Hey, Johnny, down 0.5%.
Yes, yeah. So my wife hates it because the next month our house is going to be a lot hotter because I have to beat my neighbors and be more energy efficient than them and get that report back up to the 80th percentile.
So the gamification of energy efficiency is
I love that idea.
is the future. Okay.
That's the new keeping up with the Joneses.
So if that shower info went to some database that then Kohler or Moen or something used to develop better faucets and shower heads or something, then I think that data is important. I'm just trying to figure out how is it important to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
So one of the weirder things I came across was the lock and block in the South Hall, the big black Lego looking structure.
Yeah, I actually saw those. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're polypropylene blocks, and they're like load bearing, they're structural, and theoretically somebody could put together build a house in a day just like you would a Lego set.
But let me ask you this, because this is the first question that came to mind when I picked one of those up. How the hell do I modify this block?
I believe you use a chainsaw.
Yeah, because you'd be there for a while with what you call it, not a skill saw, the other one. Can't mind blank, sorry. But trying to cut through it. I mean, it's very durable, but the problem with making something extremely durable is then it's hard to modify.
Right.
And as we know as architects, nobody wants the same thing.
Right. And I mean, it's a small modular, so you'd have to get the house to within probably like an 8 or 10 inch module or 12-inch module. But even when you do that, you're going to come into a corner that's 4.5 inches, and I have to cut that block somehow. And yeah, that block did not look like it was readily modifiable.
Well, as a recovering Lego maniac, it's like the building product I've wanted to see since I was 10 years old, right? Like just being able to build bigger things. But like also, it's pitched as maybe a green product. But how do we feel about plastic?
I just did a whole session on embodied carbon, so it might be okay. It might not be. I would want to see a lot more data on it, and we don't share that data. So
what if we're replacing concrete with plastic?
I I think that it still depends on what it's made out of, where it's made, how it's transported to the site, and um, how long it's going to stay there, right? Because if we're going to take it down and it's going to go to the landfill and it's going to stay in the landfill, then we haven't really created a problem. Or created a solution. We've just created a different problem than we have now.
Right.
So here's my question on that. Who I always enjoy asking this. How do you prefer to analyze the embodied carbon? Do you use life cycle analysis, or how do you decide what the full effect is? I'm always interested to hear that.
Well, I think that there are a lot of things that are coming out that are going to make it easier for us to do that. I do think that you should think about the whole life cycle from where it came out as a raw material till it goes to the landfill as whatever it is. But that doesn't always answer the whole question, right? Like if it only takes a day to put it up on site and the contractor's only coming once to the site with their 10 trucks instead of every day for 6 months, then, there are so many moving parts that it's going to take more of an analysis, I think, to really understand what our carbon impact is in the building environment.
Well, and all the moving parts aren't the responsibility of the same person, right? Because I can build a real crappy house, but if I do it on an infill lot in, say, Roxbury, metro part of Boston, the distance people have to go to places to get things like groceries and go to work and being able to ride the T and walk to the grocery store probably has a bigger impact than switching my basement foundation from concrete to something else.
Right. Yeah. It's not a carbon emissions from building materials, just the materials, is like 10%, right? And the other 30% is operational. So if you're just starting with day one, should we make better choices? Yeah, maybe we should make better choices. But if it's coming from California, Steve's not going to want to use it because he's got to ship it from California. So, and he's right on that point too. Is it's not all of that responsibility, right? That's just the product. Then you have the contractor, then you have the homeowners, then you have the it's a much bigger.
It's
That's
a
why I
much
really
bigger
appreciate
problem.
what you all do. That's there are a lot of boxes to check and make sure you're getting in line there. It's very impressive.
Well, and then so I'm going to go way out there on y'all, and because I believe our culture is very crisis oriented. Like we don't solve problems until we need to solve problems, right? We're not proactive. None of us are running out there and doing maintenance on our car the way we should. We're getting it fixed when it breaks, right? So, we could do all this work on carbon and stuff, and I'm not trying to be anti-carbon, but the idea of that, or being like fully sustainable kind of building, the problem is we need to have a real crisis to drive that, I think. And the problem with that is then when it becomes a crisis, we tend to find solutions that are better than the solutions we posed as preventive maintenance.
Right.
Right. So I joke, but like in 50 years or 40 years, someone's just going to come out with a carbon scrubber. Right. We're going to put these things on the top of buildings, and they're going to scrub the carbon out of the atmosphere and switch it and turn it around, because it became a point of, is it humanity is either gone or we solve this problem. And
Yeah, right. Because really, the best carbon thing you can do is just don't build. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything, and don't build anything.
well, I say that all the time. It's like, if you want to be sustainable, don't have kids and don't build. And because those are the two things that are unsustainable: population, and then the population's right to shelter, and that's what kills our. So there you go.
Right. So even if we're changing our building materials, if we're still driving everywhere, we're still, it's not as simple.
No, and even the people that argue for it, it's a hard argument, because you sit there and say, okay, well, you're arguing for all of this. Do you ride a bike everywhere? No, you don't. So it's one of those things where we get to luxuriously pick and choose our battles.
Right. So we are in the Huber booth here at IBS, and we do have a couple of new products from Huber, and we've got one of the guys who knows the most about these products sitting right next to us.
It's J.M. Huber himself.
I don't know about that.
So let's talk about the new peel and stick.
Yeah. So the reason I didn't chime in on what kind of interesting products I've seen is because I've spent all of my time right here. So I've seen some really interesting products that I've also written the installation manuals for and done all the details for. So peel and stick underlayment we just released this week, and that's actually the one I've done the most work on. So basically, we're taking our products and trying to make a more full profile of products so that you don't have to go buy our panels and then buy somebody else's tape and somebody else's ice barrier and somebody else's flashing materials. We're trying to make a portfolio where you have the same label on all of the products, so you know they're all going to work together and integrate together. So this next step of that was the peel and stick underlayment, which you can use it as an ice barrier. It's ASTM-D 1970 approved, which is the code requirement for ice barrier. And then you can also use it for full underlayment.
It's interesting you mentioned other people's flashing. It would have been nice to see a kick-out flashing on the cheek wall to roof intersection there.
Are you talking about the kick-out flashing that I forgot on my desk?
No, I'm talking, yeah, the one that should have been right up there.
The one that's still sitting in my hotel room, unfortunately.
But we're not going to pick. We're not going to nitpick that.
I was going to say you should have borrowed one. Somebody in the building zone brought one along.
Yeah. It's not a complete roof. There's no finished roof, so there's still more.
No, you guys were trying to illustrate what could potentially happen if you had done something wrong. I get it.
Yes.
I understand what you're doing there.
And so, that's an interesting idea of like working within systems. Like over the last, 10, 15 years, we've had all of these new products come along, and for a while it feels like you have to do a lot of work just to figure out what goes with what. The material compatibility can be an issue if you don't think it through.
Yeah, I think creating a system really makes a lot of sense, because narrowing it down to what will stick to this and what will be compatible with this and not degrade whatever is behind it is important. But I think it also is maybe a reminder, like if you had a kick out flashing, it was part of the system, it'd be like, here's the 6 parts you're gonna need because you're building a roof, right? So maybe in some ways that will help with, the number one building science issue, water.
Right.
I personally, I think it speaks to how complex building is, right? And I tell everybody, I'm amazed we get anything built in this country. I really am. And here it is, and I'm not beating you up, but I think it illustrates the complexity of building, that here it is, you're at the biggest show, you have a live demo, and we forgot an integral part of it. But I can't tell you how many times I walk down my own job sites and say, how did we forget that? Did I have that in the, no, I didn't even have that in the drawings. It's like, okay, that's why it isn't there. And it's just, there are so many parts and pieces to what we do to be able to walk through and say, yeah, we got everything again. That's a hell of a challenge.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, because that's basically exactly what happened. We had it drawn up in the design. We bought the metal flashing. It made it almost to the job site, and then brilliant.
And now it's a paperweight on your desk.
Forgot to bring it to the job site, and here we are without a metal kick-out flashing. Obviously, in a real-world scenario, would have been much more serious, and we would go get it. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider, that you have to get it from the drawing all the way to the end of the project.
So continuing along that same water theme, let's talk about the Advantech X Factor.
Yeah, absolutely. So Advantech X Factor is basically our next step in specialty and high performance subfloors. So Advantech is already really strong in performance with bending stiffness, planar shear, nail withdrawal, and water resistance. But something that we kind of wanted to improve on is with those really high performance homes where they want to see a really nice clean job site and something that's easy to clean off. Can we put something on an Advantech panel that makes it even easier for that part of the process? I really like the example that we got to use this product. We donated some materials to Habitat for Humanity in Charlotte, and I just happened to be on the site the day that we were doing interior framing for the interior walls, and it was pouring down the rain, and it was completely red clay mud all the way around the house and the outside. They had snapped all of the lines with red lining for the layout of the walls and all of their MEPs. It was super easy to sweep that off. You could see all the lines clearly, even after the mud had been swept off and everything. So it's just something that, how can we make this even better? And in this case, even easier for the installers and for the builder. Plus, when you walk on the job site, if you have a homeowner that is wanting to see, hey, we're paying millions of dollars for this house, we want to see it look great through the whole process. This is just one more step to satisfy their needs as well.
Is that a common request among your client base?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, clients. Well, when you say client base, certainly clients love to see nice, clean job sites, but I think more importantly, good builders want to have the ability to demonstrate nice, clean job sites, right? Because that's a reflection of who they are, direct reflection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I have to walk on a job site and kick 2x4s out of the way so me and the client can walk by, it's very frustrating. Or worry about stepping on a nail.
Right, yeah, there's
right? Stuff like that.
there.
But if I'm walking through a job site that gets swept up every night, that's, the clients look at it and say, yeah, this is who I want building my house. Because if they care about that, then they care about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think yesterday on the building stage, Ben Bogey was doing some liquid flashing, and he puts painter's tape on. And he's like, the only reason I put the painter's tape on is so it looks really clean when I take the painter's tape off. And so having things like this that allow you to have a clean job site, I think instills confidence in our clients that the builder really cares about everything. So
absolutely. And it also makes the communication with your trades, because obviously if you're doing multiple builds at the time, or like Steve, you're traveling to different areas to do different layouts, and if you can have a nice, clean, clear reading of where an MEP is supposed to go and what types of areas need to happen on that floor layout, that can be really helpful for just keeping all of your trades in line. It can save you a lot of heartbreak and time, honestly, just walking around a job site with trades.
So what else have you guys seen here that you've enjoyed? I know, Emily, you've been doing a lot of speaking.
I was going to say, I unfortunately haven't spent as much time on the floor as I would like. I spent a little time out here wandering around before it was open, which is the nice part about being a presenter. You can come in before anyone else is here, but you can't stop and talk to anyone because they're setting up their booths. So unfortunately, I've spent a lot of time on the bridge between South and West. It's my new favorite place to be. So I haven't gotten to see quite as much as I would have liked.
What about you, Steve?
So 2 points. One, I just want to give a shout out to Hubert, because this is one of the best booths I've ever been in. This is, as far as the layout of the materials, the ease of access to understand their materials and stuff, job well done to the Hubert crew.
We do appreciate
on the booth.
that.
It's, I will say, like, the last time we were in a booth, it was a little crowded and stuff. This one's here. I got some elbow room. I can stand back from material. I can get right up in its face. It's really cool. So good job, guys. But it's funny because a lot of people, I've been coming to these shows for, I don't know, probably 25 years. And I don't necessarily come to see what's new. I come to make sure, well, first, to let everybody know I'm still on this side of the grass. And two is to establish or provide continuity in our relationship, right? Because honestly, a lot of the companies I deal with, I know what's new before we get to the show anyway.
Right.
So but coming here and seeing people and talking to them and maintaining that relationship, or effectively making it better. I'm an office of two, and so I always, joke in a nice way that great companies like Huber are an extension of who I am, right? When I don't have the answer, I got Ruben's cell phone number,
Right.
Ruben finds me the answer, or whoever, Alan or whoever. And so to have that relationship is extremely important, because a lot of times the answer is hinging, some type of time frame or something, and I need that answer, and I can't go and phone into the hotline or send an email. I want to call somebody. So getting those enhanced relationships are very important to me in what I do.
And we were speaking about it before the show. Mike Dye and I are both here, and we're 2 of 4 people on our tech line.
Mm-hmm.
So when you call our office, you call the 800 number, hit 5, and you've got a 25% chance of talking to me. You're not going to get just a call center or something like that where they have a script. We definitely don't have scripts because we have no idea what you're going to ask. So we get some really interesting calls sometimes as builds go. You never know what's going to happen, and they'll ask us about just about anything. But you're going to get one of the 4 of us, and we are able to kind of walk through whatever you need.
I haven't done it yet, but I am going to call in one of these times with the most perfect crank call.
I was going to say, is that a challenge?
Oh, it's definitely
it's
coming.
A challenge.
We have a wall.
I just built an elephant pen out of X Factor, and they're pooping all over the place, and it seems like it's rotting right through. What do I do?
So an interesting one on that topic, somebody called and asked, my horse ate an Advantech panel. Is my horse going to be okay? And we have to look up data and see, well, seems like it. I think so.
So I assume, we take humans into account, but do you have that data on horses, how it affects?
We had to do some horse research, some equine research, if you will. To find out if horses have any reactions to certain woods. Turns out horses can't use walnut sawdust because of the juglans that are in the walnut. But with our southern yellow pine and aspen, completely fine.
Yeah, and I agree with Steve. I think a lot more about the show has to do with the relationships that you make with people whose products you use, but also I've been on the stage a lot, and so I've gotten to watch some of the other presentations while I'm waiting in the building zone, is to see not necessarily new products, but maybe a product you'd like to use that you haven't used yet, get installed by somebody who knows how to use it, which I think is a huge benefit of the show. Is you come over here, you see Huber, you go to the building zone, there's a bunch of Huber products over in the building zone, and they're talking about it, and they're showing, here's the panel, here's the zip tape, here's the roller, here's why you have to roll it, have to roll the joint, and so they're talking about it in those practical aspects where you can talk to the person on the stage after they're done presenting it and touch and feel and see. I don't know if you guys did any live demos in your booth, but in other years there's always live demos in the booth, and I think that's the important part. And why I think more architects should come to builder shows is to see some of that stuff, so we understand when we're speccing a product, this is what the builder actually has to do to get that product on wherever that is. And so for me, the relationships here are watching and meeting the other people in the industry who are teaching some of this stuff, so I can call them and ask them and be like, hey, Travis, how do you install XYZ? Or call you, now that I know 25% chance, I'm going to keep calling to get you to ask a random question about a product installation.
Yeah, and that's something we really think is important as well. So if you can't draw a line on a piece of paper and then walk it all the way onto the job site and make sure it's going to be installed the way it was drawn up, then you're probably not doing things correctly. You want to make sure that every line that you're drawing on that detail can actually be done and is being done correctly. That's something I really appreciate about Steve, because he spends a lot of time on job sites making sure that all the details are done correctly, that all of the products that he called out are being used, and he does a really great job of getting involved with the building part of it.
Yeah, process. I think that detail work is really what takes it. It's not that much more work, but it takes a building that's okay and makes it good or really good in a way that it's really about education and communication and making sure people understand products and how they work together to create a building that will perform the way we want it to perform.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it was born out of working at Building Science Corporation doing building investigations and understanding that very rarely do materials fail. Installation fails, execution fails. So how do I combat that as an architect? Well, getting out to the job site, having conversations with framers and, the GCs and such, and talking about, hey, you're going to install this, make sure you roll the tape, make sure you do this, do that. Those are very critical conversations to getting a product right. Because, all these products here that you guys illustrate, they're all great products, but it's interesting. I have this battle all the time when we're giving lectures and such. People say, oh, I would never use OSB, or I would never use that. It would fail. No, the materials don't fail. The installation fails. Mm-hmm. I could put any one of these materials in a really good position for success, but I just have to work that out with the builder and make sure that we're choosing the right materials and the compatibility is right, but then the installation and execution is correct.
Absolutely. And that's part of why we want to be involved in the process when our products are being used, is because we want to be able to be there and help and be able to answer a lot of that. So with our technical team, we do a lot of training with our sales reps, because obviously we're 4 people that cover all of the United States and Canada, but we can continue to educate our sales folks that are around the country, so they're not just selling a product to a lumber yard. They're actually going out and doing job site visits and having meetings with the architects and the engineers and designers to make sure that we can walk you through that whole process and kind of make it easier for you to get things right.
But the most valuable information that a salesperson needs is the information you generate in the phone call, right? What's not working? What's a challenge? What are the questions that are problematic? Those are the things that a sales team needs to combat on the front end so that you get less calls.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. I think that's the one thing on the sales team, even if you're going to the lumber yard, is what do you have? Like, what are you trying to achieve here? What system? I agree with Steve. All products are good. They're just not all good in all installations. They all have their correct thing. And, Steve said earlier, buildings are getting more complicated. Absolutely. But if you've been here at the show, there are thousands and thousands of materials in each one of these things. So it's getting more complicated because there's just more available. And so I think, especially right now with supply chain issues or whatever, one of the biggest struggles is swapping materials. Now you got to go back through all those layers again and go, okay, is this swap out the right product for what I'm doing in this application or installation?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've gotten a lot of people that will walk into the booth and say, why do I want to use your products? And I have to ask, well, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? Because
Right.
If you're trying to make a warmer floor, our products don't do that. That's radiant flooring. But if I can find out what your goals are, if you're trying to go for high custom home with super energy efficiency, then I can direct you one way. But if you're looking for multi-family building and you're going to build 600 houses next year, but you want to streamline that process and get rid of some of your callbacks, then I'm going to take you in a totally different direction. So it's so important to know, like you said, what the end goal is, to figure out, is this a product that I should look at, or should I go in a different direction?
And I think really it's, everyone has different things that they want a building to do for them, and it's all about balancing those in the real world where you're on a job site and things don't always go the way you want them to go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to...
I thought you said 4 hours.
We can just keep talking, Steve.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
We'll leave that microphone in your hand all day if we need to, Steve. But thanks to Steve and Emily and Nick for joining me on the podcast. Thanks to our wonderful friends here at Huber. As Steve said, a beautiful booth. Great show to be at. It surpassed my expectations. And also want to thank Colin running the camera. Remember to send us your questions and suggestions to FHB
Hey, great
Podcast.
big shout out to Fine Home Building too for always delivering the right information out there.
And so I'll continue that information, fhbpodcast@ton.com. Again, thanks everyone. Happy building. I'm Andrew with Fine Home Building, and we'll see you next time.